Here are all the strangest news articles of the week that you might have missed in the news. Today we'll be covering Australia's new UFO alliance, NASA's UFO updates, the Mars simulation mission, robots, and so much more. For those that have been watching Strangest News of the Week almost religiously, you're aware that this show used to be an hour long. Now it's about 25 to 30 minutes long. Mysteries with a History on Thursday with Jimmy Church used to be 90 minutes long. Now it only goes for 60, with some days we do go overtime. But the thing is, with YouTube and all the content I do, it's a lot, and I had to cut down so much as I'm working 3 jobs a week, because not 3 jobs a week, but like 3 jobs in general, because I want to get that RV. I want to travel the United States, hitting all the UFO and paranormal hotspots, documenting it, and taking you on the journey with me. But the reason to why I haven't gotten it in December or January is because things haven't really been panning out. With this channel and this show, I love doing it. I love it so much, and I know many of you love tuning in whenever I do shows. I used to do 3, now it's 2, and it's going to be turning out to 1 show a week, because this takes a lot of time and resources. And now that I'm working 3 jobs and I kind of want to work more hours, YouTube making content is kind of going down the drain. But the best way to support it, to keep getting content, is through Patreon. There you also get extra content. You get merch that I'm not selling, I'm giving out, and you're able to interact with other people as well. Patreon is a really great place to support this channel, more so than YouTube or being a YouTube member, because YouTube takes 30%. It's a lot. Patreon, on the other hand, you actually get a lot more for your buck, and it helps me as well to keep going. The thing is that with YouTube, it's throttling the work that I do. It's throttling this channel, and it's not getting the reach on the feeds. People are unsubscribing to the channel without their consent. It's happening to them, and they text me and they're like, or they email me and they say, Christina, I got unsubscribed. Do you know why? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of do. This topic is classified as fringe, but I love doing it. I know you do as well. And I don't really like doing this, but I'm doing it because I know how important it is in order to get all the things I want to talk about with you. And if I could do it every single day, I would. But right now it's not turning out that way. So Patreon is the best way to support this channel and to get so much more content. And here is the link for it. It's also in the description box as well. Now we're going to get right into the news, talking about Australia first, because the Non-Human Intelligence Research Institute, known as the NHIR in Australia, has launched this new alliance. And it is an international initiative to unite legislators globally on the issues on UAP. And this was announced on July 8th of 2024, and it aims to foster for transparency, scientific research, and global collaboration on UAP. The alliance also seeks to destigmatize UAP discourse and adopt a collaborative approach to what this alliance considers to be one of the most pressing challenges facing the global community today. And you know what? With that sentence, I simply could not agree more, because since I started researching this topic, I've come to realize, at least from my own perspective, that the conversation of UFOs, UAP, has to be one of the most important topics that humanity is covering. And people they roll their eyes at me and they say, Christina, what the heck are you talking about? There are so many other things that are incredibly important. And for myself, the thing is that when we look at this, and I'm going to be using Ronald Reagan's speech that he gave to the UN in the 80s, where he says, if there is an existential threat outside of our planet, would it unify humanity? Would it? Because right now we're all battling with each other. But if we find a common enemy, which is terrible to say, but bear with me, would it unite humans? And the answer would hopefully be yes. Now, extraterrestrials, they shouldn't be seen as an enemy. Maybe some of them do not have our best interests, but others do. There are 2 camps in this field, of those that see them as space brothers here to save the planet and cure cancer, and the other ones are doing alien abductions and cattle mutilations, abducting people, children, adults, women, men, all of the above. Okay. And it's pretty freaky stuff. So you have maybe separate species having separate agendas, but if we can all understand this and talk about this and get that disclosure and transparency, will it unify humanity? And I feel like this Australian alliance is kind of seeing this. And also with the NHIR Institute, which was founded in 2023, so last year, by two people, one of them being a neuroscientist and businessman, along with another one being experienced in Australian and UK politics. They're the ones pushing this forward, saying you can report your sightings and your experiences, and for politicians to also talk out about this, like what we're seeing in the United States with Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, and so on. This is a really exciting time that we're able to see this publicly. And for those that didn't know, when it comes to the NHIR Institute, Ross Coulthart is also writing articles for them and has been since this institute was created. So I think for a lot of people, that does add a level of credibility where he talks about the NHI, the UAP, and is evidence enough when it comes to collecting information about UFOs. And those links to those websites will be in the description box below. Moving on to our next one here, talking about NASA. So almost really close. This was what, September of 2023. That was for the first time ever we heard together, you and I collectively, when Bill Nelson said, "We're transparent and you can bet your boots." I have loved that saying ever since, and I feel like I say it on a daily basis. Well, we have some rather interesting updates when it comes to this NASA briefing that we received last year. And if you watched it, don't bother. Let me just tell you what happened. They gave us no information. Everything was classified. And you can bet your boots that they did not cover really anything pertaining to aliens or ET, only that they need more funding. They need better technology to get better information. How many decades have we heard that argument, that conversation? Too many to count. And even in modern times, NASA is still pulling our leg with that information, while at the same time saying, we're so transparent. We are just as transparent as glass. You know what? We are more transparent than glass. And that's kind of what they're going for. And what's interesting is that the debrief did do a follow up on this over the last few months to get more information, because NASA said, yes, more information will come forward. We're waiting for it. Where is it, NASA? Where is it, Mr. Bill Nelson and the rest of the team? And looking at the UAP Institute independent study, which concluded the better data is needed to understand UAP. They did work alongside the DoD to continue researching their information, and the report emphasized the importance of improving, oh my gosh, just bear with me here, of improving sensor calibration, obtaining multiple measurements, and leveraging NASA's expertise in a comprehensive data strategy. A 10-year-old could do that. But they are not providing us the information that we need, that we want, and that we are paying for as well. But if we were to push NASA aside just for a moment, we can take this in two parts. Number one, it's very interesting and it's very cool that in 2023, they even talked about UFOs and just having a public interest. They've been having an interest in this stuff since they created NASA. But just now, they're saying, oh, we're ready to look into it publicly. So you have that part. But pushing NASA all the way onto the deep end, we'll actually just throw it into the water, into the monster soup. Other countries, other organizations, we can even bring in Australia with their last article, is that globally, everyone's showing an interest in UFOs and doing the research and attempting to find something, attempting to get some substance behind it. And when we look at the latest ARROW report that we received in March, they said The US government alone has been studying UFOs since 1946 with Project Saucer. Then, looking all the way into Arrow's history, which was created in 2022, we're looking at a handful of decades, a little under 80 years of showing an interest, doing research, and every time these 15 projects, panels, and reports have been saying nothing to see here. If there was nothing to see here back in 1946, why are we still using our tax dollars for the research? Why are we still putting people in the field? Why is NASA even caring at all? If there's nothing to see here, we're transparent and you can be at your boots. If I could roll my eyes all the way onto the floor, I would. And then I would go blind. And I would say it's okay because I'm rolling them just so hard because it's so annoying and it doesn't make sense. Does it make sense to you? And if it does, raise your hand. Let me know why, because it's not making sense. Well, this is true, Tinkers. Not defending NASA, but they have always been behind schedule on literally everything. Yes, the Artemis, the JWST, the Hubble, and the list goes on and on. They have never been on time. You are right there. However, when it's coming to a paper report, give us something, anything. And they have not pulled up to the plate here. And so the reports released by NASA have been reluctant to discuss its progress on UAP research. And when the debrief inquired about NASA's current UAP efforts, a spokesman provided a rather vague statement stating, quote, NASA continues to review UAP independent study teams' report recommendations and determine the next steps to move forward. In the last year, let's say a little bit under a year, they have just been planning steps forward without actually putting it into work, actually doing the actions. They just say we have step 1 and step 2, all the way into step 547. But there's no action in between. And what's even more daunting is the fact that during that briefing last year, the panel did not even discuss who the new person that was going to spearhead the project, who that person was going to be, until they got ridiculed so bad during that panel that just within a few hours after they ended it, they said, all right, here's the person, here's his information, there you go. That person, that chief, has not spoken publicly about UFOs since his name was released to the public. Why? Why even bother having a panel mentioning that you have a UAP team doing the research on this if you're not going to provide anything? Just continue doing it in the dark then. You know? What's the point of getting people's hopes up if you're not going to bring anything to the table? You didn't even bring some treats or some grapes to the dinner date. Nothing. Come on. It's disappointing. And it also, with Administrator Bill Nelson, he stressed the agency's commitment to transparency and understanding UAP, stating, quote, we don't know what these UAP are, but we're going to try and find out. We're open and we're going to be open about this. Yeah, to who? To your mom? Definitely not to us, not to the public, not the ones that are paying you the money to do the research. Who are you open to? Now, some of us might have the answer to that, and yet it is disappointing that a year later we haven't got anything, even when people have been following up with NASA and they're being vague, even with these journalists, even with these people that have an interest in this topic, as they should. But here we are, and very vague updates. I would like to see when their next briefing will be, if they will have another open panel like they did last year, where it was open for questions, because they were squirming in their boots. They did not know how to answer a single question. And you can watch that over, actually. That part I do recommend. They didn't know how to answer a question, and I'm thinking, why bother having a Q&A if you do not know how to handle the scrutiny and how to answer most of them were very legitimate questions. Disappointing. But continuing on with NASA, because this part is rather interesting, actually. And we're looking at the CHAPEA mission, which was the Mars simulation mission that took place in Houston. And what they were doing was they were living in about a 1,700 square foot 3D printed habitat. And they were attempting to see what it would be like to live on Mars, the issues that would arise. And these 4 people that we're looking at here all have very specific traits and credentials that the other one does not have. We're looking at medicine, we're looking at biology, and a few others as well, as you would need for any of your missions. So after 378 days of being in this confined space of 700 feet, which would be about a one and a half bedroom home or apartment or whatever, pretty small for 4 people to not only have sleeping quarters, a kitchen, a bathroom, but also a research facility as well, a little area, and to grow food. All of those different things for 4 people in a very small space. You're really concise with the square feet that you have, how to use them, and to exercise as well, which was another thing they did have to do and consider for not only their physical health, but their mental health as well, because we know that exercise is really good. It helps release dopamine, and it allows us to sometimes, most of the time, think clearly after an argument. Yeah, imagine being with 3 other strangers, okay, for a period of time. They're all brilliant minds. Maybe a few were a little hard-headed. And imagine having an argument with them, saying, "Look, I could end. I could poison all the food right now. I could give you medical treatment that will not make you survive another day." Imagine the threats that might have taken place there. Pretty spooky stuff, but for the most part, when they came out just a few days ago to speak to the public on their experience, they said overall it went great. Are they lying or were they telling the truth? But the CHAPEA stands for the Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog. And for all the things that I mentioned, that is what happened. And what was interesting is that even though they were based here on planet Earth, they still had to accommodate the communication delay that it would take to communicate from NASA in Houston all the way to Mars, which is about 22 minutes. So whenever any of these 4 people had a question, they had to wait 22 minutes for an answer from NASA to cover either providing information on their breakthroughs or asking questions that they would need in order to fulfill their missions. Pretty cool stuff. Now, what I would like to know is how it affected them psychologically, being in a small space with a handful of people doing missions, feeling stressed, not being involved in the outside world at all. There was no internet, there was no social media, there was no staying updated on any of these things. I'm not even sure if they were able to communicate with their family. I'm not sure about that, but if they weren't, that just adds another layer of stress to see when their birthday is, if anything happened to them, if they had any great achievements that needed to be celebrated. All of these different things do play a toll on the mind. And if your mind is not operating properly, your body and your actions and your missions will fail because of it. Everything starts off with the mind, and that's where my interest is to if I had the opportunity to ask them questions pertaining to that. And I think other people that have an interest in this mission might do the same. Now, this brings us into the next thing that definitely plays hand in hand with this mission that started last year and they were just released recently. And we're talking about the Biosphere 2 that took place back in 1991. Who is familiar with it? If you're familiar with it, let me know in the comments. Hit that like button right down below as well if you know about it or if you're enjoying the show. Because I'll be honest with you, I have no problem telling you I did not know about this, and I am shocked that I didn't even know this took place back in 1991 in Arizona. Because this, what we're looking at here, take just feast your eyes on this screen. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, that video link is in the description box below. So this was initially operated by Space Biospheres Ventures, which is a private company. And then the project later came under the management of Columbia University and the University of Arizona. And what's really interesting here, I'm gonna zoom in on this image, is that there were, I believe it was 8 people that were able to work under all of these different environments. You have desert, you have marsh, ocean, savanna, rainforest, and an agriculture as well, where they're able to grow food. This was very significant to help people understand back in the 90s how they could create a habitat on the moon or on Mars. And some, like the university said, it was very successful overall. The media, on the other hand, had to disagree significantly. Why? Because to start off with, the crew members, here they are, suffered from starvation because their food was, it didn't, what happened with their food is that there were animals there were bugs there in order to help the ecosystems thrive. But the bumblebees and the butterflies died first during this operation, which was 2 years long, by the way. And if you do not have those beautiful pollinators, things are going to go downhill from there. So they suffered from starvation. And on top of that, there was a significant amount of CO2, carbon dioxide, versus oxygen, a little under half the normal amount right here on planet Earth. So breathing was an issue. Eating was an issue. And if you don't have either of those two things, especially if you don't have both of those two things, a lot of issues arise, such as irritation to be one of them. It was so bad, according to the reports, is that these 8 people turned into 2 different groups of 4 people each, and they did not want to talk to one another. Yeah, just imagine that, getting those reports. But it was because of that experiment in the 90s that NASA was able to understand it, work around it, and have a successful CHAPEA mission that started last year. So we have to take the good with the bad. And what's funny about this is that the Discover magazine called it the most exciting scientific project to be undertaken in the US since President Kennedy's launch towards the moon. But according to Time magazine, they placed Biosphere 2 on the list of 100 worst ideas of the 20th century. That's terrible. That's awful. They were all able to, they all survived. They all did fine. They all able to get out of it after those 2 years. But it, for them, it wasn't necessarily positive. And there has been a movie released on it that I would like to watch to see on how that panned out for them. But I'll admit, I'll say it. I didn't know about this, and I think it's so interesting. And I need to read all the books and all the articles on it because it's very important to understand these mishaps, these what you and I might classify as a failure, in order to have proper successes. But again, according to the universities of Columbia and Arizona, they said overall it was a success. What do you think? At the very least, based off of the information that I provided to you, was it a success or was it a failure? And would you have wanted to be one of those 8 people in this different types of biospheres that we're seeing right here? Would you? I want to know. Yeah, P says it's like living in a dorm at college. Yeah, not ideal, but even then you're able to walk out of campus, grab a bite to eat, maybe ride your bike and come back. They weren't even given that opportunity. Oh, Hyde says, do it again, but give them internet. Okay, why? Is it to help them understand how to maintain their ecosystems? Is it to be used as a distraction? I want to know if you were to continue. Let's see. Rayo says Mexican food was not allowed. I don't think so. I don't think they had beans and stuff like that, but they did have to grow all their own food. And the starvation got so bad that the animals that they also brought in order to allow those ecosystems to thrive, they ended up eating them. And like the goats that provided milk, but they weren't able to because of their lack of food, the chickens because they weren't producing enough eggs, and there were a few other animals as well that they ate sooner than expected just because of how things were going downhill pretty quickly. Yes, I would also ask about their sanity. How did that go for them? And yes, Raphael, it's still there, and I believe it's now open to the public. People are able to go and check it out, which that's on my bucket list. I want to check that out. I want to see all the different ecosystems, because the question that I had was, how are they able to have all these different ecosystems in a very confined space and all right next to each other? Those were definitely my questions. So they did have big brains there on how they were able to maintain it, both on a theoretical level and then also when they actually spent time there in the 90s, how they were able to maintain it for a period of time. That's pretty innovative. Like, I think that's pretty cool. Oh, Raphael says I live by it. Have you been? Is it cool? Is it as cool as I think it is? Because I'd like to go, only if it's cool. Oscar says that they have toilet paper. Well, you can also use plants as toilet paper. So if they didn't, they knew where they could find it. And if you're enjoying the show, hit that like button right down below. Let's get to 200 likes, if and only if you're enjoying it. Hit that right down below. Getting on to our next one here. You're probably familiar with this image or the name OceanGate. What does that ring in your mind looking at the Titan? What took place really not that long ago? Well, it was a submarine that wanted to look at the Titanic, where these people had like millions of dollars, and it imploded. Yep, and they all passed away rather quickly after days of not knowing what happened to these people, if they were stuck, if they were hungry. As soon as they hit a certain level, something happened and the whole submarine imploded. Well, there's more information to this, because OceanGate said, you know what, even though we failed in the ocean, we are not going to fail when we start putting equipment on the moon. That's where we're going next. I think every single person that heard that immediately lost faith. Do they have any stockholders for this? I highly doubt it. Why? Because OceanGate did so bad. When they ended up doing an investigation on how things were operated, there were a lot of glaring errors and mistakes, starting off with their team, starting off with the technology, using a very unique type of remote to operate their submarine, and the list goes on. If they were to launch some kind of joint society with equipment to the moon, I'm not taking their ship. I am not using any of their equipment. That is not happening because we saw their first failure. And I think, you know what? I think it's a great idea. That's what's going through their mind. But is it? Well, this information, they just came out with it rather recently, and they want to call this joint society called the Perth by 2063. But the thing is, there are a lot of private and public companies that want to do the exact same. I will buy a ticket for anyone else's company than these guys. Yeah. Marty says, just say no to OceanGate. Yeah, you have to pay me to take your stuff. And even then, is it a death wish? Now, Charles, using the trigger words here, gateway portal, maybe? Portal is my trigger word. I love portals. I think they're the coolest thing. And if one were to open up right in front of me, I'd walk through it with no hesitation, but I would bring my emergency backpack with ramen and snacks and some rope, and I'm going through it and just gonna hope for the best. Yeah. I would go through it. Would you? That's the question. Given the opportunity, if you saw a portal open up right in front of you, would you go through it not knowing what was on the other side? Hallwork says, portal to the afterlife. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, geez. Oh. So there is that little detail. And their timeline also includes placing a basic hut on the moon's surface by 2031. That's pretty close. And we know that SpaceX, right, with Elon Musk and NASA also have that timeline along with China and India as well. They all want to get to the moon by about 2030, around that time. So all of these things are very interesting, and I'd like to see how OceanGate is going to compete with these other companies that have very big brains on their team, the resources as well, funding, and the list goes on. Now, OceanGate did have that originally when they first started, but if there were stockholders for OceanGate, for the Titan, I don't think there will be for this next one. But you know what? I can be proven wrong. I guess we could only see and find out what happens next. And they want to create this mini city on the moon by 2046, accommodating 578 people. And then a thriving community of 1,644 people by 2063. You got big dreams, big goals. And you know what? Do you. I'm not going to be one of those people. Not with you. Next one. Oh, I love this one. Okay, so there's this ginormous. When I'm saying giant, I mean it's 12-meter tall robot in Japan that helps with train railways. Now, if you are one of my Patreon members, I did do a strange news of the week for you last week, a little private one, so I wasn't able to make one for YouTube. And you know that I touched on this, but I'm like, this is so good. This is so good. I got to cover it with everybody else because the West Japan Railway has introduced a rather innovative humanoid robot designed for maintenance work on its railway network. And it has a small head with camera eyes, which can perform tasks, hear me out, such as painting. Got a little Bob Ross going on over here. Tree trimming, and you can just imagine what they're using. They're using a chainsaw, and also heavy lifting, moving bars around, moving trees around and branches and all that kind of fun stuff, doing that as well. And it's all being operated remotely from a cockpit, and it can handle objects like in weight about 40 kilograms or a little under 80 pounds or so. And it's already in operation. So the West Japan Railway has already introduced this. And I'd like to see what other parts of Japan or even parts of the world will also start using this. Because when it comes to Japan in particular, they are very heavy users when it comes to trains. There's ginormous train fanatics. You got train channels when it comes to Japan. A lot of people use it to go to school, to go to work, and it's a better port of transportation than a car or a bus. So they are one of those countries that use it significantly. And that's why they have created this robot. But the thing for me, okay, and I even stuttered there because it's so crazy, is that this guy can use a chainsaw. Yeah, just allow your imagination to wander for a moment on that. You have a huge robot with a huge chainsaw. Yeah. I'm going to leave that one right there. Now, out of all the articles that we covered, which one was your favorite? Let me know in the live chat. Please let me know in the comments as well, because I always enjoy hearing which one was your favorite. For myself, I think it's really fantastic to hear about new updates when it comes to other countries creating their UFO institutes and alliances to get a global interest on this topic. And of course, at the same time, I did really like to hear that when it came to the moon, the Mars simulation mission, that it went successful. So I really liked those types of things. Let's see. What about you? Mark says all of them. Nice. Daniel says, gotta love the robots. I think robots are pretty cool. They have a positive and a negative side to them. But when it comes to something like this, to where they're able to operate on a railway to keep people safe, there are plus sides to that. Marty says the Mars simulation. Yes, the Mars team, says John. Nice. So, yeah, a lot of Mars simulations actually. Oh, that's super awesome. Thank you. I'm really glad that you guys all liked it. Well, that is it for today. I will see you next time. Before you head out, scan those QR code, as it'll take you to all of my social media links and my website where I do write articles for all of the shows right here. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that like button if you enjoyed the show. Now, be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.